From KCBS Radio in San Francisco, I'm Matt Pitman, and this is Bay Current for Friday, January 21st.
Returning for the Warriors, number 11, Thompson.
Chase Center has been rocking all season long for the Warriors. But now, for the first time this season, they're in what some might call a slump, losing 6 of their last 9 games. But the NBA season is a long campaign. Dips and slumps are to be expected. But at the midway point of the regular season for the Warriors, is there reason for concern, or is the best still yet to come? Last night, before the Warriors' overtime loss to the Indiana Pacers at Chase Center, I caught up with someone who's at every game, at home and on the road. One of my go-tos every day at theathletic.com and on his Warriors Plus Minus podcast. Anthony Slater is senior writer for The Athletic, covering the Golden State Warriors.
Yep, the NBA a little bit too, but
yeah, a little bit of NBA.
I mean, when the Warriors take over the storyline of the NBA for the entire season, it feels like I'm mostly around the Warriors.
Which they have.
Yep, exactly.
And want to check in on a couple of things. First and foremost, I think the most exciting thing so far of the season, despite, the hot start, the most exciting part of the season so far has been the return of Klay Thompson. Kind of give me your, heat check on Klay, if you will, of kind of where he is right now and how he's acclimating back into this thing after 2 full seasons being out.
Yeah, because to me, the return of Klay Thompson is a symbol of the return to championship contention.
Yeah.
Even though in a weird way they kind of look like a contender without him, the first 45 or so games. But in the playoffs, they're going to need a sturdy, every night Klay Thompson. And to me, the field goal percentage isn't too good so far. He's not hitting his threes as well as he'd like to. But if you're just watching Klay Thompson, he kind of looks like Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
On defense, his shot looks like the confident, a quick trigger shot that you've always seen. And to me, that's the biggest thing, because you just, you wondered off too, just normally devastating injuries, the ACL, the Achilles, if he'd come back looking more like a JJ Redick, which is still a very, very good rotation player for a long time, but not just the two-way force that Klay always was. But to me, he's looked strong in the post. He's moved laterally pretty well. They played Memphis. They didn't have him guard John Morant. I don't know if that was cautionary or he's just moved to a later stage of his career where he's more guarding 3s and 4s than 1s and 2s. But generally, he looks like a clear rotation upgrade, shooter, good defender, and he's only playing 20 to 25 minutes right now, but even talking to him after some of these games, he's like, I feel good. I wish I could play 30. I could play 35.
Yeah. Now, you expect him to say that.
Yeah.
But he's about the most competitive human being on the planet.
No doubt. But it does seem to be coming from a genuine place of he feels physically like I could have stretched it to 30, 35 now, which tells you by the time he builds up his conditioning and the training staff is comfortable with it and the games matter more, he should actually be able to play 35 minutes, which was a big question.
What is the biggest, surprise storyline for the Warriors this season? I mean, I could think of a whole bunch, but if you had to drill down to the one, what is it for you?
The defense, I think.
Okay.
They are the number 1 defense in the league, and they within a week of the season starting, it was they're leaps ahead of the Jazz and all the other possible great defenses. Whereas they were 5th last year, and it felt like a surprise. And then when they went into the offseason, they prioritized shooting, spacing, high IQ players, which included Bielitsa and Porter, guys who aren't known as defensive stoppers.
They were straight up veteran offensive upgrades to the roster for offensive depth. And then really the only other additions are 2 lottery picks, and you cannot count on them to be defensive anything in this league.
So, the thought was, and by the way, this was not just an external thought, Draymond Green thought, how am I going to hold this together? How am I going to maintain top 5? That almost seems impossible. That was his thought in preseason. I think Mike Brown has been great coaching the defense. Sure. I think some of those veterans, when we talk defense too much, we talk about length, speed, quickness. Brains matter too. Sure. And the high IQ that they added on offense, they go back to the defensive end and have a high IQ too. And just commitment to winning. And then also, I've mentioned the name a few times, Draymond Green was electrified early in the season. I think he saw that they could compete for a title pretty quick, and that just turned him on. from a competitive standpoint. And when he has that type of motivation, he almost can drag you into an elite defense by himself. So that, to me, has been the stunner, because the offense has kind of waxed and waned. You mentioned the lull earlier lately. That's been an offensive lull. The defense really hasn't gone anywhere. They are just top the whole season.
Steph Curry, he would be the first to tell you that he's not shot at the level he expects to. He's still Steph. I'd let him. He's got the green light whenever he wants it. I'd say he's earned it, But like, at some point, a few more of his shots are going to fall, certainly from beyond the arc. That concern you at all? Should there be any concern about Steph and maybe, I don't want to say the lack of consistency, because he's still going out and getting it done, but there are certain nights where, Steph just doesn't have it.
Yeah, look, he's at a point of his career, and really a point of his life, I should say, which is, about to turn 34 in March, that like any dip in production, you start to wonder, is this, post-career, will we identify that moment as when he started to hit a decline? But you talk to people, or you talk to him, and they say it's not a physical thing. I mean, maybe the record chase fried him a bit mentally. Also, defenses more than ever are throwing it all at him. I mean, it's just like, a few years ago, Nick Nurse hit a box and one in the finals. It was like, ooh, that was interesting. Like, well, that was kind of, they really sold out. Now that's like a nightly, like, because coaches are copycats in the league. They see stuff that's done on Steph Curry, and they do it. So now he's just facing swarms and swarms where it's tough for him to find even a window of a shot. Now, what matters, though, is when he's on the court, they're way better, because if you take two defenders and really 10 eyeballs one way, JTA's getting it done, Kevon Looney's getting it done.
GP2.
And that's never going to change. Like, to me, we'll know that Steph Curry is declining as a feared scorer when defenses stop doing what they're doing.
Right.
But as of now, if he's just anywhere on the court, they still fear him more than ever.
With Draymond and nursing the injury, it's a calf injury tied to a disc injury in his back. Right now, it sounds like physical therapy is kind of where it's at, and a combination of rest. What is there a substantial level of concern, or is this just one of those middle of the season things where it's like, good thing it happened now, we could get him the rest and he should be good to go for the stretch in the playoffs?
I mean, anytime you hear like backs involved, discs involved, especially, Steve Kerr has his own experience with that. There should be some type of alarm bell. Now, their messaging on it, from Draymond to Steve Kerr to Bob Myers, has all been like, super precautionary, surgery's not expected to be needed, just some rest that'll help him anyways, and he'll be back, relatively soon. But look, they've messaged out optimistic timelines on James Wiseman this season that have not come true. So we will see. Draymond is getting older. He plays a really physical style. He's a 6 foot. They list him at 6'7", but that's generous. He's really 6'5", 6'6", and you see it up close every night. Like, he's banging with big guys.
No one plays harder. Nobody.
But how is that on a back? And part of the reason he was so good this season is not only because he, mentally cared a bit more, but also he came in really good physical shape. He's talked about drinking less, better lifestyle, but he becomes a worse player, like anybody, I guess, when his body is not feeling up to it. So it's not a good sign that he's going through this, but I can't tell you how big a concern it is till we know if he's back and how he looks.
So you mentioned Wiseman. You actually broke a story, I think last week, might have been a couple weeks ago, about he actually had to go back in for a cleanup procedure. Look, he's 7 feet tall, and he's a rim protector, and he's a guy who can catch the ball at the rim and score too. Those are rare assets to have. What does it do for them when they get him back, and how do you work him into what's already going on?
Well, it's really tough for them because, initially their hope was like November, December for him. The original timeline had him ahead of Klay Thompson to return. He still, as of us speaking, has not been cleared for contact. They hope that's soon. But you're getting to a point of the season where you're trying to form your playoff rotation. And the fact that he's not even, at this point, I don't expect to see him before the All-Star break. So we're talking about optimistically mid to late February, pessimistically it could be March. And he is, still 20, and he played so little in college, and he played so little as a rookie. And the biggest knocks on him already are like lack of feel, like lack of basketball reps. Like, I think most people are in agreement when the guy's 25 years old, he should be a really, really good NBA player. But I think it's becoming more unrealistic every day that goes by right now that he hasn't played, that he can help in a playoff rotation this season. Because playoff basketball is about veterans.
Yeah.
It's about smarts. It's about knowing where to be.
And rotations tighten, and even if you're on the edge of that rotation, you might not see a lot of time.
And players being targeted, right?
Yep.
And like to me, like even Kuminga, who at this point is way ahead of it in his development.
Next guy I was going to ask you about.
Yeah, we can get to him, but like, you know, he looks great right now.
Yeah.
He's a very optimistic story. I can still see a series where like Steve Kerr pretty quickly is like he just can't survive, you know, in Utah right now. So I'm concerned about this second season James Wiseman, even if I'm still optimistic about sixth season James Wiseman.
JK, Jonathan Kuminga, man, he looked 18 years old when we first saw him, like in some of the preseason games, even very, very early this season. But the work that he's been doing with the coaching staff and then in the G League, totally different player right now. I mean, his upside. I haven't seen a young player with that much potential that's so exciting to watch night in, night out, whether it's in short bursts or the longer bursts that we've seen of late. What is the kind of ceiling, I guess, for Jonathan Kuminga?
I mean, name your like all-star big wing in the league.
Like Sean Marion's the name that was thrown out recently.
Yeah,
Steve Kerr. Yeah,
Steve Kerr put Sean Marion out. They've like, at least from a career pass standpoint, tried to like hint at Kawhi Leonard, which is like, hey, he came to the Spurs.
Optimistic.
He played like a role. Early in his career, he was playing a role, and then boom, year 3, year 4, he's a star. Yeah, that is like the top end. Obviously, I bet it's a Hall of Famer. Pascal Siakam.
Yeah.
If you want to,
from my time in Seattle with the Sonics, the guy Rashard Lewis kind of comes to mind. Rashard might have been more of a pure shooter, and Jonathan might be a little stronger inside. But that long wing who can shoot and who can also elevate.
I mean, look, lower end maybe like a Tobias Harris. I know he's getting some criticism in Philly right now, but he got a max contract for a reason. Good score, big. But like, look, a 3-4, more towards a 4 that can play small ball 5 that should be able to score over 20 a game, mostly on power drives. A lot of his ceiling will come down to his three-point shot, just like with Kawhi Leonard, right? Kawhi Leonard early in his career was not really a three-point shooter. Right. Now, like, don't give him the 3. I mean, he's 40+. I'm not saying Kuminga will get there, but the 3s look better lately. It really has. But the athleticism gives him an absurd ceiling, and the feel is much better than I expected. He makes nice passes. I think difficult but also beneficial thing for him is where he's developing on a title team where, I think down the line all these lessons he's learning about winning basketball will be vital for him. But, he makes a bad mistake, he's coming out of the game. Where if he's playing in Orlando right now, he's just getting 35 minutes a night.
Yeah.
So.
And what are you really learning other than just that you're racking up minutes and padding stats?
I mean, you're learning how to become Rashard Lewis, maybe. I don't know.
Or Aaron Gordon, where you just wait for that trade in a few years. Yeah. Anthony Slater, man, I appreciate the conversation. It's been a great, fun run in this first half. I think we're in for a heck of a second half as well. Thank you, man.
Yep, no problem.
Thanks again to Anthony Slater. If you're a Warriors fan, he's on Twitter, @AnthonyVSlater. There's a link to Anthony's Warriors Plus Minus podcast in our show notes. And thank you for listening. New episodes of Bay Current are out every weekday, and we'd love to be part of your daily routine. You can subscribe to Bay Current on the Odyssey app, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Podcast, or just about anywhere you listen. And every episode of Bay Current is on the KCBS Radio YouTube page, and there's a link in our show notes. That's it for today's Bay Current. I'm Matt Pitman. We'll chat with you again on Monday.